Part 121. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1202. Chapter 1202, Famous Combat Skill, Golden Wild Goose Splitting Air Palm. Boom. With fists and palms facing each other, Suchen took 3 steps back before stopping his body, but the opponent didn't move at all. Moreover, there seems to be a hidden force hidden in the opponent's palm knife. At this time, through the right fist, it drills into the arm like a spike. Suchen waved his right hand slightly, easily releasing this dark energy. What a joke, now his body has been trained to be invulnerable through continuous eating of monster meat and practicing the dragon and elephant prajna kung fu during this period of time. Others would suffer a secret loss due to this strength, but it was him, but you are suffering from ringworm and mustard. However, Suchen's actions caught Li Rui's eye, and the latter laughed scornfully and said, "Don't you feel uncomfortable with that secret energy? You dare to take a slap from me with one hand. It's such a big deal, and you deserve to be taught a lesson." But even though he said this, he was still shocked in his heart. I didn't expect that this kid actually had some strength. Carrying a monster weighing more than 1,000 kilograms, he could still receive a palm from me with one hand without being seriously injured. Although my palm only used 50% of my strength, it also shows that this kid's true combat power may have reached the outside world. There are about a dozen of his disciples. But this level of strength is not enough to challenge me, Li Rui. Li Rui sneered and said, "I didn't use my true strength in that palm just now, but next time, you won't be so lucky." Suchen put down the flaming stone cow and rubbed his fists and feet. Suddenly there was an explosion and crackling sound. "What you just said is exactly what I wanted to say." Li Rui snorted coldly, his momentum suddenly rose, and shouted, "You dare to lie? Since you are seeking death, don't blame me, my senior brother, for being rude." Jin Yan split the air with his palm. I saw Li Rui suddenly leaping up, his figure immediately rose more than 10 feet, and he rushed towards Suchen with a fierce momentum like a wild goose. It turned out to be Li Rui's famous combat skill, Jin Yan's air-splitting palm. I heard that Li Rui relied on this move to reach the 8th position among his outer disciples. This move is extremely powerful. It can condense the whole body's spiritual energy into one place at the moment the body rises, directly increasing the power of the move by 50%. This time it was really over. Li Rui even used his famous combat skills. It seemed that he was really angry. Junior brother Su was definitely in trouble now. Li Rui raised his hand with one hand in mid-air, and his momentum increased by 1 point. The palm knife that struck actually broke the air, and let out a sharp roar, just like a king's golden goose. That palm knife was his sharp beak pecked at Suchen fiercely. Suchen's face showed a solemn look for the first time, but he also wanted to know where his strength was now, and he didn't have the slightest fear in his heart. His legs sank slightly. He stepped forward, and at the same time, when he closed his fists on his waist and abdomen, he shouted loudly, like 2 dragons going out to sea, and faced the ferocious golden goose. The 2 dragons and the golden goose faced each other, and there was a loud explosion. This caused the surrounding spectators to feel tinnitus, dizziness, and other discomforts. When everyone looked at the field again, they found that the 2 men had each taken a step back and the fight was evenly matched. However, Suchen's arms were shaking slightly. Obviously, the dark energy contained in Jin Yan's air-splitting palm is not weak, and he cannot get rid of it in a short while. However, Li Rui on the opposite side also feels uncomfortable, and his pair of fleshy palms are gradually becoming swollen. Snort. I didn't expect that this kid turned out to be a barbarian who trained his body. If I had known better, I wouldn't have fought hard with him. Li Rui is worthy of being one of the top 10 outer disciples of the Vajra section. His vision is unparalleled by ordinary disciples. He only found out what Suchen called the bottom line with just 2 moves. Now that we know that this guy majors in body training, it's easy to handle. How can a smart person compete with a fool? How many of the barbarians who have been exercising can actually practice martial arts well? But the audience didn't see it that way. They only knew that each of them had a move. Li Rui also used his famous record, and Su Chen actually caught it. Not only that, he also fought evenly, and they immediately looked at Su Chen with admiration. At the same time, the look in Li Rui's eyes lost the fear at first. Li Rui hid his swollen palms in his long sleeves, glanced around with his eyes, took in everyone's expressions, and said sarcastically, "A bunch of frogs in the well, short-sighted," with a cry. Li Rui pulled out his long sword, the tip of the sword pointed directly at the opponent's eyebrows, and he shouted with a mocking tone, "Don't you dare to pull out your sword." "Why not?" Su Chen sneered, moved his right hand, and the dark star sword shot out. With a habitual flick of his wrist, he easily pulled out several sword flowers. Seeing this scene, Li Rui was even more sure that he was a reckless man who only knows how to exercise, sarcastically said, "The way he grabs the sword looks quite similar, but I don't know if he will be able to shake it later." "Just take a look and you will know." Su Chen didn't argue with him. The dark star sword came out. He couldn't stop it without seeing blood. "Humph, if you speak harshly now, I will make you kneel down and beg for mercy later." Li Rui shouted angrily and stabbed with his sword. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1203. Chapter 1203 Sorrow Breaks the River. Suanwi Realm Master. The Water-Breaking Sword Technique. Qianba Swordsmanship. As soon as the two engaged in battle, sword rays shot out, and the sound of swords and swords could be heard as thick as drizzle. In a flash, the two of them were fighting for dozens of rounds, but Li Rui was unable to suppress the opponent, and he suddenly felt anxious. If he fights this wild boy who comes from nowhere, doesn't it mean that he will not be able to see anyone in the future? How can this be done? It's just that he has exerted his spiritual power to 120%, and the opponent is still like that. He looked tepid. No matter how fierce and weird his sword power was, the opponent always defended unhurriedly and steadily. The two sides fought for nearly 100 rounds, and Li Rui saw that Su Chen didn't even sweat on his forehead. His eyes were still calm, but he couldn't help but feel a little suspicious in his heart. Could it be that this reckless boy is actually a rare master of swordsmanship? Otherwise, how could it be so secure? By now, Li Rui knows that he has met a strong opponent this time, and has long put away his previous contempt. Now he just wants to end this embarrassing battle as soon as possible and go back to seclusion for a few months. I will definitely teach this hateful brat a lesson in the future. Not wanting to fight with this brat anymore, Li Rui shouted and provoked him, "You are a tortoise, so you can only defend." Su Chen originally saw that this guy was pretty good with the sword, and could barely practice the Qianyi sword technique that he hadn't used for a long time. He didn't expect that after just a short while, the opponent would lose his temper. But if the opponent wanted to die, he would not hold back. "Sword dance, dim." The 4 words were spoken softly, and Li Rui felt that the black long sword in Su Chen's hand had slowed down a lot, and there were countless after images following behind, making people dizzy and dizzy. Snort. "No matter what mysteries you try to do, you can't stop my water-breaking sword technique." The 5th level of the water-breaking sword technique, Sadness Breaks the River. Worry Cutting Rivers is the highest level among the 5 levels of the water-breaking sword technique. If a master in the late Suanwi realm uses this move, he will really have the power to cut off rivers with a sword. However, although Li Rui is only at the 9th level of Kaiwu, he can't use it. The power of this move should not be underestimated. The two finally revealed their unique tricks, and the onlookers around them were immediately shocked. A showdown between masters at this level is rare, and it is even the first time for some new disciples to see it. Yes. Understanding is a gain. Even if you don't understand, it doesn't matter. You can also broaden your horizons. However, when Suchen's Lanchan sword collided with Li Rui's sorrowful river, everyone only saw a ball of exploding snow. The sword light was shining, and then they felt their eyes stinging, and they couldn't help but close their eyes. When they opened their eyes again, only one person was left standing in the field, and that was Suchen. And Li Rui, with countless wounds all over his body at this moment, was originally decent. The intact clothes became tattered, and the blood dyed the clothes red through the wounds. He closed his eyes tightly and lay on the ground, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. Gudong. Everyone couldn't help but swallow secretly, not daring to look directly at Suchen's sharp eyes. There are only countless shocks in my eyes and heart. This little-known junior fellow student named Ye actually defeated, no, he completely defeated Li Rui, who was ranked 8th among the outer disciples. You see, even his clothes are still the same as before, without any damage. I think it's very possible that he didn't use all his strength in the battle with Li Rui just now. Holy shit. This is too strong. Is this still a new disciple who has only been here for half a year? If all the newly recruited disciples this year are of this strength, then I might as well find a hole and bury it myself. The exclamations from others could be heard in Suchen's ears, but they could not make even the slightest wave of excitement in his heart. After the ups and downs of Kingxia sect, he had long looked down on others' evaluations. In his mind, there are only two goals in his heart, one is revenge. The other is to pursue the ultimate in martial arts. He silently picked up the body of the flaming stone cow on the ground again. He shook his head secretly. Today is really troublesome. It is better to go to the Foreign Affairs Hall as soon as possible to replace this monster beast. Spiritual stones are the real deal. However, things backfired and misfortunes never come singly. Suchen had not taken a few steps when he saw a sword light suddenly light up from the top of the mountain, rising into the sky, and flying toward the mountainside with a roaring sound. Who dares to hurt my nephew? The loud voice spread rapidly around with rolling waves. Suchen suddenly raised his head, narrowed his eyes dangerously, and whispered in shock. Suanhui realm. The ordinary disciples who had not dispersed at the foot of the mountain with Suchen all raised their heads in surprise. When they saw the figure on the flying sword clearly, someone immediately shouted. It's Master Li from the Medicine Refining Hall. Isn't that Li Rui's uncle? Why did he come suddenly? Look, there's another person on Master Li's flying sword. It seems to be Li Rui's distant cousin. It was Master Li who he called. Everyone looked at Suchen. Suchen injured Li Rui's distant cousin, and then severely injured Li Rui until he fell into coma. Now his uncle is here, and he is also a master uncle in the Suanhui realm. This is terrible. Make things worse. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1204. Chapter 1204 Killing two birds with one stone. Before the flying sword landed, Li Rui's distant cousin pointed at the young man carrying a monster beast below and shouted, "Cousin, that's him." We kindly advised him, but not only did he not take us senior brothers seriously, he also injured 3 of us. Now even cousin Li Rui who helped was seriously injured by him. Cousin, you must help us avenge such a cruel person. Uncle Li was named Li Yuki. He had triangular eyes, windy ears, and a mustache. After landing and putting away his flying sword, he immediately shouted to Suchen, "Where is my nephew?" Li Rui's distant cousin immediately pointed not far away and shouted, "Cousin, he's still lying there. This thief has done something very dirty. My cousin is afraid that his injuries will be serious." Li Yuki didn't care about Suchen's trouble. He glared at the latter fiercely and quickly found Li Rui. After checking, he breathed a sigh of relief. It was just some skin injuries and some internal injuries. He would be fine after taking the elixir. He made sure that his nephew was fine. Li Yukai stood up, glanced at the disciples present with dignity, and said solemnly, seeing that my senior brother is seriously injured on the ground, and there is no one to take care of him, do you still have some friendship with fellow disciples? Due to his identity and strength, everyone did not dare to say anything. They just murmured in their hearts, the Vajra sect has always encouraged its disciples to fight privately. When did you ever tell us about the brotherhood of fellow disciples? After training the others, Li Yukai squinted. With his triangular eyes, he looked at Suchen carefully, and even took a second look at the flaming stone bowl on the ladder's back, and then said sharply. A new disciple who had just started, dared to use such vicious moves and seriously injured 4 senior brothers. Do you think you are guilty of such outrageous behavior? Su Chen, who was upright and not afraid of the slanting shadow, replied, they were the ones who troubled me first. How dare you quibble? With a bang, Li Yukai unleashed all the aura that only a monk in the Suanwi realm can have. His clothes moved automatically without any wind, and he was unparalleled in majesty. All the Kaiwa realm disciples around him felt that the spiritual power in their bodies was stagnant and their breath was not smooth. They couldn't help but retreat. Only then he felt that the spiritual power in his body was better. However, Suchen, who was closest to Li Yukai, looked at him as if nothing was wrong. He did not take a step back, his expression was as usual, and he looked at Li Yukai without giving in. His cultivation was once close to the peak of the 9th level of Suanwi realm, and Li Yukai, the aura of the 1st level of Suanwi realm, really can't make him feel any pressure. The only discomfort is that the spiritual power in his body is slightly stagnant, but this will not affect his strength. Justice is in the heart. Everyone can see whoever is making excuses. Oh, Li Yukai narrowed his triangular eyes even more narrowly, revealing a dangerous gleam. He stared at Suchen and said, are you saying that I, my uncle, am slandering you? The disciple believed that he had done nothing wrong, and that all his actions just now were defensive counterattacks out of necessity. Moreover, the Vajra sect has sect rules. If fights among disciples do not harm lives or cause disability, they are not guilty. Cousin, he is lying. It was obviously him who attacked us first without any reason. This guy has a sharp tongue and tells endless lies. Cousin, if such a person stays in our Vajra sect, it will be a disaster. Li Rui's distant cousin shouted hurriedly, while glaring at Suchen viciously, thinking in his heart, little bastard, if you dare to hurt me, you will be punished with death today and will never escape. My cousin's favorite thing is, Li Rui, it's okay for you to offend me. Even if you offend him, even the gods can't save you today. Humph. Aren't you good at fighting? Now my cousin is here, you fight? Do you dare to do it? Suchen has a pair of looking at him with sharp eyes. Li Rui's distant cousin immediately jumped up behind Li Yukai like a reflex, and shouted at Suchen with a fierce expression, you, what are you going to do? My cousin is here, how dare you openly commit murder? Snort. Sure enough, he has sharp teeth and a sharp mouth. Li Yukai really admired this kid in his heart for being able to pretend to be okay and talk back to him despite his aura. It's not that he didn't know what kind of virtuous person his distant nephew was. What happened today was very likely. It was this distant cousin who caused the trouble. But it was only because of his bad luck that he hurt someone. Injuring his own nephew was his fault. If he doesn't teach this boy a lesson today, he will be in trouble in the future. What prestige is there in front of the disciples? No matter how you quibble today, you must be punished. If you can take my 3 palms, this matter will be settled. As soon as Li Yukai said this, there was an uproar. Some people secretly muttered the master uncle of the Suanwi realm wants a disciple who is at the 8th level of the talented martial realm to receive his 3 palms. Doesn't this cost junior brother Su half his life? SHH. Don't let Master Li hear it, haven't you seen it yet? This is Master Li's plan to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only was he avenging his nephew, but he was also killing the chicken to show the monkeys, as a warning to others. Listen to my brother's advice. From now on, when you see Li Rui and others, we will walk around. If we can't afford to offend them, why can't we avoid them? Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1205. Chapter 1205, Leap Level and Draw with Suanwi Realm Powerhouse. Hearing this, everyone nodded secretly. The situation is stronger than the person, so I have to bow my head. What's wrong? Are you afraid if you don't speak? Li Rui's distant cousin came out again, with an extremely arrogant expression. He pointed his finger at Suchen and shouted loudly, so you are also a bastard who bullies the weak and fears the strong. The man was spitting what he said, but he didn't know that many people next to him looked at him with strange eyes. A bastard who bullies the weak and fears the strong? Then aren't you one yourself? There are still people who scold themselves these days. Li Rui's the distant cousin didn't realize there was anything wrong with his words at all. Instead, he felt that being able to point Suchen's nose in front of everyone and curse was the most satisfying thing for him today. If you're afraid, it's okay if you don't dare to fight with my cousin. Li Rui's distant cousin raised his leg and took a step across, pointed at his crotch and laughed. Get through here, maybe my cousin will spare you this time. Li Yukai on the side closed his eyes slightly at this time, as if he didn't hear what his distant nephew said, and looked indifferent, obviously acquiescing to his behavior of humiliating Suchen. Suchen smiled coldly, and slowly stepped forward towards Li Rui's distant cousin, as if he was really going to do something so shameful and humiliating. However, just as Li Rui's distant cousin was mocking and ridiculing him wildly, Suchen suddenly punched him. Seeing the fist as big as a sandbag coming towards him with a roaring wind, Li Rui's distant cousin couldn't react for a moment and stayed in place stupidly. Snort. How dare you play such a little trick in front of me? Li Yukai opened his eyes just in time, with a cold light flashing in his eyes. With a wave of his hand, he blew up a strong wind containing strong spiritual power, easily neutralizing Suchen's offensive. Since you are so ignorant of good and evil, no wonder your uncle is so cruel. Li Yukai took a step further, pushed with one hand, and slapped Suchen with the monument-destroying hand. The monument-destroying hand used by Li Yukai was different from the one used by Qi martial realm disciples. They were also yellow-level high-level martial arts, and those of the Xian martial realm. When Li Yukai struck out, not only did the wind of his palm tear the air and make a whining sound, but there was also a faint light blue air film wrapped in his palm. This was the result of the released spiritual power attached to the palm, which could greatly enhance martial arts. The power, and even the damage caused by the air film is higher than the damage caused by the flesh palm. Suchen was once a monk in the Suanwi realm and knows this well. But so what? Practice with the dragon elephant Prajna Kung Fu with his body made of copper skin and iron bones, coupled with the strength of 2,000 kilograms, he may not be able to withstand this palm. Keng. A single fist met the flesh palm, and at this time, there was a sound of metal and stone, which shocked all the disciples. And after the moves were completed, both parties took a step back to resolve the impact. What? Junior brother Su actually ended up in a tie with Master Li. One is at the 8th level of the talent martial realm, and the other is already at the 1st level of the Xian martial realm. The difference between the two is one big realm plus 2 small realms. It actually ended in a tie. There is no reason why everyone should not be surprised. Many people here have completely witnessed how Suchen fought up step by step. At first, One person faced 3 senior brothers with the same cultivation level, and ended up beating the 3 of them into coma. Later, he fought again. He seriously injured Li Rui, who was 1 small realm higher than him and ranked 8th among the outer disciples. Now he was tied with his uncle of Suanhui realm, who was 1 big realm and 2 small realms higher than him. Terrible. Where is the limit of junior brother Su? Could it be the same as the previous 2 times? Will Master Li also? Everyone looked at each other in confusion. The more they thought about it, the more frightened they became. Their eyes on Suchen also changed. I just feel that the image of this seemingly thin young man rises infinitely in my heart. Li Rui's distant cousin almost stared out of his eyes. However, he believed that it was Li Yukai, as his uncle, who let off steam in that move just now, which resulted in a tie between the 2 sides. Otherwise, if my cousin attacked with all his strength, this damn Suchen would definitely have his bones broken and his muscles broken. Only the person involved, Li Yukai, knew clearly that he had just used his 8 successful powers, and what he wanted was to defeat the enemy with 1 move and show his majesty as a master of the Suanhui realm of the Vajra sect to the disciples. But the result shocked him. When he was fighting with this poor boy, he clearly felt a huge power from the opponent's fist. This power is not even inferior to the power of the air film attached to his palm. Monster! Is there any disciple in this sect who can cultivate such a powerful power when he is at the 8th level of Qi martial realm? Even among the Suanhui realm masters and uncles who specialize in bodybuilding exercises, it is rare to see such great power in the early stages. How did this kid practice? Is there someone behind him secretly supporting him? Facing Suchen, who couldn't rely on common sense, Li Yukai could only think this way. If there is someone or a family behind this disciple named Ye who is fully supporting him, then at this age and this level of cultivation, he can compete with the Suanhui realm. The power of early masters is not impossible. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1206. Chapter 1206, The Sparrow knows the ambition of the swan. However, if he knew that Suchen had been alone since he was a child, and the strength he had now was entirely achieved by his own hard work. Not only did he not rely on anyone else's strength, but he was also harmed by traitors along the way. Otherwise, his current strength would be far beyond what he is now. Moreover, if Li Yukai knew that half a year ago, Suchen was a disciple of the Qingxia sect, the top sect in the New Moon Kingdom, and was also a strong man with a cultivation level at the 9th level of the Suanhui realm, I am afraid that there will no longer be any surprise. You, don't be arrogant. Just now, my cousin let you go for the sake of elders. Although Li Rui's distant cousin is not very strong, he still has a strong ability to observe people's emotions. He saw Li Yukai's embarrassing situation at a glance, and the latter's complexion was turning from white to black, so he immediately shouted at Suchen. But anyone could tell that he lacked the confidence to speak, and what he shouted was dry and unbelievable. However, even so, Li Yukai finally stepped down, coughed, and said, "Yes, I only used part of my skill in that palm strike just now. As a new disciple who has only been in the sect for half a year, it is commendable that you have such cultivation. However, the family has family rules and the sect has sections. If you hurt others without any reason, I, the uncle, must give it to everyone. Disciple, please behave, otherwise everyone will be like you in the future. Is there any hope for our Vajra sect?" Li Yukai's words were righteous and awe-inspiring, as if he was the one standing on the moral high ground. Li Rui's distant cousin next to him nodded repeatedly. Suchen has experienced ups and downs in life, and he has long seen through the warmth and coldness of human relationships. The world is in trouble, he has basically seen who Li Yukai is now. And after the exchange of moves just now, he has figured out the opponent's strength. He secretly compared their respective combat strengths in his heart. He is now 50% sure. Able to tie with Li Yuki. Even, maybe even beat Li Yuki. He teaches his nephew incompetently, is high-sounding, confuses right and wrong, and is extremely hypocritical. If this is the example that Master Li has set for us as disciples, then there is hope for the Vajra sect. Suchen's words were so decisive that they hit everyone's hearts like a hammer. Li Yuki's old face suddenly turned red, like roasted braised pork. What did you say? Li Yuki took a step forward, his eyes narrowed dangerously, with a cold light, staring at the young man standing proudly in front of him, and said with a smile on his face, do you dare to say what you just said again? Li Yuki was really angry. Ever since he became a Suanhui realm monk, no Kaiwa realm disciple in the Vajra sect has ever dared to contradict him in public. Did this kid take the courage of an ambitious leopard? I really thought that move just now after a tie, would he have the capital to compete with the masters of the Suanhui realm? He really didn't know the heights of the sky but the frog in the well. Facing Li Yuki's completely unleashed momentum, Suchen seemed to have no reaction at all. Instead, he steadily took a step towards the opponent without any trace of it. He refused to give in, and the momentum he showed was vaguely threatening to rival Li Yuki. If you are really an elder who enforces the law impartially, I, Suchen, will definitely respect you. But from the moment you appeared here, you were sending me a message all the time. You, Li Yuki, are an elder in the Suanhui realm, but you don't have the dignity to be an elder at all. You don't deserve to be called master. Everyone was in an uproar. Is he crazy? How dare you contradict Master Li like this? Alas, you are still young and frivolous. When young people have a little bit of strength, they don't know how high the sky is. Even if he can tie with Master Li for a while, the Suanhui realm is the Suanhui realm, and the spiritual power within it far exceeds the Kaiwa realm in both quality and quantity. How can junior brother Su defeat him? You are only half right. Let's not talk about who is stronger or weaker between the two. After all, Master Li has been an old man of the Vajra sect for decades. How can his connections within the sect be comparable to that of a new disciple, junior brother Su? Even if junior brother Su wins, life will not be easy in the future. It's a pity that a genius in cultivation will probably stop here in the future. Everyone's words fell on Suchen's ears, but they could not cause any fluctuation in his mood. Who among the people present knows about his past glory? Who can guess? And who knows about his past downfall and life and death struggles? Who can guess? The sparrow knows the ambition of the swan. A mere Vajragate is just a stepping stone to his future revenge. His future is definitely more than that. Once upon a time, the monks at the first level of the Suanhui realm were just weaklings in front of him. Even if his cultivation is now completely useless, who says that the 8th level of Qi martial arts cannot defeat the masters of Suanhui realm? As for the possible revenge afterwards, how could he, Suchen, ever take it to heart? He wanted to see how much trouble a mere monk at the first level of Suanhui realm could make in front of him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1207. Chapter 1207 Easy to lift the power of Dzogchen. I have to say, this is the first time an outer disciple dares to talk to me like this. You have the guts? But young people, this world is a world where the strong are respected. If the wind is strong, your tongue will flash. Li Yuki finished speaking in a cold voice, and his aura reached its peak. This time, not only will he not hold back, but he will use 120% of his strength. Today, I will not destroy this arrogant boy here. He wrote the word Li Yuki upside down. Li Yuki raised his left hand in vain, turned his right hand into a claw, grabbed the ground with both feet, and shouted. The dragon and the tiger destroy the mountain hand. This shout was like the roar of a tiger and the roar of a dragon, with overwhelming momentum. The clothes all over his body made a hunting sound without any wind. Suchen was already prepared. His breath sank, his arm slightly bent, and he took a step forward with his right foot. His body sank slightly at the same time. An indescribable force field appeared around him, and his whole body suddenly became as powerful as a mountain. Strangeness. What kind of move is this? Why did junior brother Su's aura become so strong all of a sudden? Could it be that I am not cultivated enough and am blinded? Everyone had already expected Li Yuki's astonishing power, but Suchen's powerful momentum seemed to be as good as his opponent's on the surface, which surprised everyone even more. Only Suchen himself knew that this was his use of Epei. He realized the effect of the great perfection in the profound meaning of being able to lift a heavy weight while still being light. After 2 months of training in Juying Valley, he not only increased his physical strength to the terrifying level of 2,000 kilograms, but also realized the profound meaning of being able to lift a heavy weight in the Epei to the highest level. Realm. Now, he is immersed in the profound meaning of lifting weight with ease. His whole body is like lifting a mountain, as stable as Mount Tai. Li Yuki is slightly shocked, but that's all. A mere ordinary person at the 8th level of Qi martial realm. Disciple, no matter how good looking you are, can you still compare to a genuine Suanhui realm master? Now let me show you the combat power of a real Suanhui realm monk. Li Yuki didn't stop any longer. With a collapse sound, the air was torn apart as soon as his body moved, and he roared towards Suchen. It has to be said that after a monk breaks through to the Suanhui realm, his whole person will be completely transformed. The evolution. Whether it is physical toughness, agility, or speed, it has strengthened the Qi martial realm monks by more than one level. Of course, Suchen is an exception. After all, not many people will be like him. When he is still in the Qi martial realm, the strength of his body has been strengthened to a level comparable to that of Suanhui realm monks. Li Yuki is only at the first level of Suanhui realm. Although his spiritual power can be released externally and form an extremely thin air film outside his body, the range of the package is limited and can only target sexually wrapping some vital parts, or wrapping it on fists or palms to enhance aggression. But even this is shocking enough. Li Yuki, who was aroused by Suchen, was like a furious beast at this time. It collided with a rumble. But it was different from the reckless monsters, and its body agility and cunning were much higher than the monsters. The Dragon Tiger Mountain Destroying Hand is a yellow-level top-level martial skill, and its power should not be underestimated. At the same time, there is Li Yuki himself. The increase in Suanhui realm cultivation is even more astonishing. Before anyone arrived, the shock wave caused by the move made everyone take a step back. So strong. Is this the true strength of a Suanhui realm master? So amazing. While everyone was marveling at Li Yuki's amazing momentum, they looked at Suchen with more expectations. Can this young man in shabby clothes bring another surprise to everyone? Can he refresh everyone's expectations again? Did Sanguine turn the world around on his own? Before anyone could guess, the two sides were already in contact. Li Yuki's attack on the Dragon Tiger Mountain Destroying Hand was fast and fierce, as if he was capturing the tiger on the left and circling the blue dragon on the right. The attack completely enveloped Suchen. Airtight. In contrast, Suchen's movements are much slower, like a small boat on the rough sea. It seems that it may be smashed to pieces by the huge waves at any time, but it can always be in the most dangerous situation. The danger was saved at the critical moment. On the surface, it seemed that Li Yuki was suppressing Suchen. But at this time, Li Yuki was also suffering. It was obvious that the blow of the Suanhui realm monk far exceeded that of the Kaihui realm, but the reality was that he hit 2 or 3 times. Suchen only needed a powerful and heavy punch to defeat him. Although it was a bit reluctant, this kid really withstood his full blow. This cannot continue, we must fight quickly. The longer it takes, the worse it will be for my reputation. If this continues, even if I win in the end, it won't mean much. Li Yukai, who had made up his mind, changed his moves and his body suddenly fell into a trance. If he made a careless move, he would leave several after images on the spot. Snort. You brat, don't be complacent just because you have brute strength. I want you to know what the real difference is between Suanwi realm monks and Kaiwi realm monks. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Yukai's figure immediately disappeared from everyone's eyes. Only a few people could see a little blurry shadow, let alone capture his movements. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1208. Chapter 1208. They are all human beings, so why is the gap so big? But he didn't expect that Suchen just smiled coldly, swayed, and disappeared from the same place. Although Li Yukai's disappearance surprised everyone, it was still understandable. After all, he was a master in the Suanwi realm. However, Suchen also disappeared, which immediately caused an uproar among everyone. Depend on monster. This young man is not only powerful in strength, but he also surpasses us in physical skills. How the hell can you compare with him? We are all human beings, so why is there such a huge gap? Suchen suddenly showed an amazing movement. Li Yukai was the most shocked among everyone. His face instantly darkened. At this time, he had a faint premonition in his heart, but he suppressed it forcefully. Go down. Will I be defeated by this kid? What a joke. How is it possible? But this thought appeared in his heart for the first time. It can also be seen from the side that Li Yukai's full self-confidence has been weakened. Thunderbolt Palm. Boy, go to hell. Li Yukai no longer had the patience to play with the young man in front of him. He must, absolutely knock this kid down. And the sooner the better. Suddenly, a thunderous rumble suddenly sounded around Suchen, and the sound was as close as one, continuous. What came with the roar was Li Yukai's crazy attack without any hesitation. Others couldn't see Suchen's figure clearly, but it didn't mean that Li Yukai, a master of the Suanwi realm, couldn't. Cheng. Moreover, Suchen did not use the Yalong footwork to the highest level at this time. Otherwise, with Li Yukai's strength at the first level of Suanwi, it would be really difficult to capture Suchen's figure. Being rushed by Li Yukai surrounded by thunderbolt fists, Suchen did not panic in the slightest. Instead, the corners of his mouth gradually curled up with a slight arc. When warriors fight, the most fearful thing is to be anxious. And now Li Yukai committed this big mistake. Taboo. Originally, under the suppression of Li Yukai's absolute strength, Suchen could only parry. But now, Li Yukai's seemingly crazy and airtight attacks are not invulnerable in Suchen's eyes. With the force of lifting a weight as lightly as possible, he pushed out the layers. The power of his fists, which may not look amazing, but contain more than 2,000 kilograms of energy, actually blocked all Li Yukai's attacks. Suchen's dark eyes were as bright as stars at this time, and he was calm. Terrible. Suddenly, Suchen's eyes moved, revealing a hint of joy. It's now. The two sides exchanged dozens of moves frantically. Suchen finally caught Li Yukai's flaw, and immediately shouted, his whole body's strength surged again. And carrying the secret of lifting weight like lightness to increase the strength, with a domineering attitude, he punched from bottom to top. They flew towards Li Yukai angrily. No one standing on the periphery could see the moves of both sides clearly. However, at this time, with a scream mixed with extreme shock, Li Yukai, an uncle of the Suanwi realm, suddenly flew backwards. And while he was still in the air, he vomited 2 mouthfuls of blood. Looking at Suchen again, he still maintained his right uppercut posture, his eyes were like tigers, and he was overflowing with domineering. There was silence. Before the scene happened, although everyone was not optimistic about Suchen, they secretly hoped that the latter might not be defeated. However, when Suchen really won, everyone couldn't accept this fact. Because that little bit of expectation for Suchen might just be a delusion arising in people's minds because they couldn't stand the evil-doing behavior of Li Yukai, Li Rui, and others, or it might be more appropriate to call it daydreaming. But when this daydream suddenly appeared in front of everyone, it was hard to accept it. Can a daydream become a reality? What a fantasy! But now, this fantasy has truly appeared before our eyes, without any trace of falsehood. There's no reason why everyone doesn't believe it. While everyone was still trying to digest this shocking fact, Suchen slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air to suppress the boiling spiritual power in his body. He glanced at Li Rui's distant cousin who was standing next to him like a goose. The latter seemed to have suddenly come back to life and let out a scream as if he had seen a ghost. He didn't care about the unconscious Li Yukai who fell to the ground, or the equally unconscious Li Rui on the other side, and rolled and crawled out. He has been scared to death by Suchen. From now on, Suchen's shadow will always be his biggest inner demon. If he cannot break this inner demon, his cultivation will never improve. Li Rui's distant cousin was just a jumping grasshopper and was not considered in Suchen's eyes at all. He patted the dust off his body, picked up the flaming stone cow carcass on the ground, and continued walking step by step towards the Foreign Affairs Hall on the top of the mountain. Just like the stairs under their feet, Li Rui, Li Yukai, and others are just stumbling blocks on the ladder. Sometimes they can get out of the way, but sometimes if they are really unhappy, they just kick them away. These stones will always be supporting roles. His real goal is to climb these steps step by step until he reaches the top of martial arts. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1209. Chapter 1209 Chi Intake Pill. A strong person is heaven, everything, everything. In fact, Suchen knew that Li Yukai, who was at the first level of the Suanhui realm, was not that fragile. Suchen knocked him unconscious with just one punch. It's just that a person of the same generation as a master of the Vajra sect was defeated today by a new disciple who was a whole lower realm, and he was defeated openly. As everyone knows, he really has no face to see anyone. Instead of getting up and running away in despair, why not just close your eyes and hide your ears from all the whispers around you? Everything today really taught him a lesson to Li Yukai. However, he has lived for decades and has seen and heard of many methods. If he wants to deal with a new disciple with no background, he has plenty of opportunities. Suchen, just wait for me. If I make you crazy today, I will make you regret it for the rest of your life. What happened at the foot of the mountain quickly reached the Foreign Affairs Hall on the mountain. When Suchen walked into the hall carrying a flaming stone cow several times larger on his slightly thin back, the scene fell into an eerie silence. No one dared to get too close to Suchen, but they gathered together in twos and threes, standing behind Suchen and whispering quietly, and from time to time there were unbelievable exclamations. Suchen knew that his goal of rising strongly in this small sect had been achieved. The result of this is good, no scoundrels will annoy him in the future, but it is also bad, those who are defeated by him will inevitably be resentful and revengeful. But looking at it from another perspective, are these disadvantages not benefits? Isn't it a motivation to make progress? As long as he can improve his strength at the current speed, or even at a faster speed, in this world where strength is the most important thing, those who have revenge will always be able to hide their revenge deeply until it leads to into the grave. Just because, in this world, strong people are heaven, everything, everything. And those who are weak are destined to be mercilessly trampled under the feet of those who are strong. This is the reality of this world. Naked reality. You are the first outer disciple to come here carrying a flaming stone bowl in exchange for the sex contribution. The steward of the Foreign Affairs Hall couldn't hide the wonder and appreciation in his eyes, and said to him with a smile. Suchen just pursed his lips and nodded. The flesh and blood of the flaming stone cow was removed, and he was replaced with 300 low-grade spiritual stones, as well as 3 advanced ones. Chi pill. The chi pill is a low-level elixir of 1 turn. It does not provide spiritual energy to the cultivator. However, it can increase the impact of the meridians on those who are making a breakthrough. Just because the physical strength of ordinary monks is not high, they cannot break through by themselves. The impact caused by cultivation is extremely dangerous, and using this kind of chi enter pill is tantamount to seeking death. Therefore, this kind of chi enter pill is rarely used by people, and its price is not high. But for Suchen, who practices the fragmented scroll technique, but it is a good medicine. Today, the strength of Suchen's body and muscles far exceeds that of cultivators of the same level, and can even compete with some low-level monsters. He wants to break through the cultivation level, but he is afraid that the impact is not enough, so why should he worry about the impact as before? Excessive force led to the consequences of being possessed and dying. After a short rest, he went directly to the spiritual formation at the foot of Daking Mountain that afternoon. Outside the spiritual formation, he was slightly surprised at the spiritual formation management room. I met an acquaintance, Lu Sheng. Compared with before, Lu Sheng's cultivation level has not changed much, but his overall energy and spirit are obviously much better than before, especially after meeting his great benefactor Suchen. Dear benefactor, long time no see, your cultivation has improved again. Lu used to feel that his benefactor's strength was extraordinary, but now it seems that it is even more unfathomable. Lu Sheng was very happy to see Suchen. He poured a cup of tea and handed it to Suchen, smiling happily. Seeing that Lu Sheng had overcome the psychological shadow that Jinchengtai had brought to him, Suchen was also very happy. He took the tea and they chatted with him for a long time with some emotion. During the conversation, Suchen learned that since he accepted Jinchen Jiang's letter of challenge, Jinchengtai had never caused trouble to Yajiu again. Perhaps Jinchengtai was worried that Suchen would come back again. Go find trouble with him. After all, every time Suchen beats that damn fat guy, he hits hard enough. Why? Look at me, the older I am and the more talkative I am, my benefactor must be here for cultivation, how can I disturb my benefactor so much of his time? Which stone room your benefactor wants, I will arrange it for him. Lu Sheng slapped his forehead hard and said with great annoyance, but there was still an unstoppable smile on his face. Suchen waved his hand and said, it doesn't matter, just give me a medium-sized room. What? Lu Sheng raised his head and looked at Suchen in surprise, and said with surprise and joy, my benefactor has broken through to the Suanhui realm. Suchen shook his head with a smile. Not wanting to see a strange disciple suddenly next to him, he first glanced at Suchen with some restraint, nodded in greeting, and then said with a smile. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1210. Chapter 1210 Spiritual Array Cultivation. Start breaking through. Guanqi Lu doesn't know yet, but this morning, senior brother Ye not only fought 3 outer disciples at the 8th level of Kaiwu alone, but also knocked out Li Rui, who ranked 8th among the outer disciples. In the end, he used physical fists to beat Master Li, who was at the 1st level of the Suanhui realm, until he was unconscious. Tisk tisk. In that scene, senior brother Ye looked so domineering. Junior brother admires you. Suchen didn't expect that the news would spread so quickly. What happened in the morning, most of the Vajra sect knew about it in the afternoon, so he had no choice but to smile. Lu Sheng was stunned. After being stunned for a long time, instead of being surprised, he was surprised. Suchen found a deserted place and said anxiously in a low voice. My benefactor. Lu knew very well that my benefactor's potential was extraordinary, and it was not something that a mediocre person like Lu could imagine. But benefactor, Lu has to say something harsh here, a genius who dies midway is no longer a genius. A big tree attracts the wind, so your benefactor needs to keep a low profile. Don't make too many enemies based on your whim. Hearing Lu Sheng's heartfelt words, Suchen was filled with emotions. These are the words that the only person who truly thinks about himself can say in so many years. Suchen already understood Lu Sheng's affection for him through what he just said. He patted Lu Sheng on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Thank you, brother Lu, for speaking out. I understand." Yu Sheng didn't know his situation. He was a middle-aged man who had lived for more than 40 years, so what he just said was his half-life understanding. Although Suchen would not do what he said, but in order not to make him anxious for him, he had to tell a white lie. Lu Sheng knew that Suchen now had the strength to defeat the Suanhui realm uncle, so he stopped blocking him and handed Suchen a medium-sized stone chamber. At the end, he also warned the concentration of spiritual energy in a medium stone chamber is far higher than that of a low-grade stone chamber, but the degree of mixed spiritual energy in it is also higher than that of a low-grade stone chamber. My benefactor should pay attention. Suchen nodded, took the license plate and entered one of the 300 medium-sized stone rooms. With a bang, the stone door was closed, and everything outside was cut off from this small stone room. Suchen's eyes gradually became sharper. It's time to break through the 9th meridian. There is no difference between the interior layout of the medium-grade stone chamber and the low-grade stone chamber, except that the pattern of the stone pillar in the middle is much more complicated, and the aura emanating from it is also richer, almost 6 times that of the outside world. However, compared to the lower-grade stone chamber, the spiritual energy here seemed to be much more violent. Suchen took a deep breath, and felt that countless spiritual energy all over his body was rushing into his body, and his lungs felt slightly burning. Suchen knew that this burning feeling was the result of the spiritual energy in the body. The violent energy contained in it. If a cultivator is eager to advance in cultivation and absorbs the spiritual energy here without restraint, he will be gradually eroded by the violent energy contained in the spiritual energy, and finally the violent energy will permeate the whole body. Will inevitably lead to obsession and tragic death. However, this situation is not a problem for Suchen, because this is the second time he has come to the spiritual formation to practice. The first time he only practiced for a few hours, and this time it was only one night. The damage to the body is not great. Unlike those inner disciples who have been practicing here all year round, the violent power in their bodies has been eroding for a long time. Some inner disciples even have red spots in their eyes, and are on the verge of becoming possessed and going crazy. But even so, Suchen felt that he needed to pay attention to something. Only when he needs enough spiritual energy to make a breakthrough, he would come here to practice. And every time he practices, he must isolate the spiritual energy here for at least a month. I believe that if this is the case, those violent powers there should be no accumulation in the body. He sat cross-legged and meditated, adjusting his inner breath. Half an hour later, Suchen adjusted the spiritual power in his body to its peak. The perfect spiritual power of the 8th major level of Kaiwu surged through the body from time to time and let out a sound. The sound was like the crashing waves on the shore. It was just that only Suchen could hear this sound and no one else could feel it. Let's start. Take out an qi intake pill from the storage bag and throw it into your mouth. The qi intake pill melts in your mouth and immediately turns into a torrent like a waterfall falling from a high mountain. It suddenly rushes into the body and flows along the strange path. The 8 meridians flowed forward, and quickly drove the already restless spiritual power, which immediately set off a tsunami of spiritual power, rushing forward in the meridians. Rumble. Suchen could clearly feel this spiritual power. The power of a tsunami. If the meridians in the body are compared to a river, the spiritual power in the meridians at this time is like the tide on the Jiantang River. The volume of the river cannot carry so much tide, but the closed nature of the meridians causes these spiritual the force tide cannot cover the river, and the result is that the meridians are swollen and then swollen. His brows are slightly wrinkled. Although the pain of the swollen meridians is uncomfortable, the pain is still within the tolerance of Suchen. At the moment, he took out the second chi intake pill from the storage bag and threw it into his mouth. When the second chi intake pill entered the body, the already roaring spiritual power gained a new impetus and quickly started to riot like fire cooking oil. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 1211. Chapter 1211 Breaking Through the 9th Level of Kaiwu. Kongjianzhu Menying. Because the spiritual power has nowhere to go, and the internal power is too great to vent, it can only be added to the spiritual power itself. This incident immediately caused the spiritual energy in Suchen's body to boil rapidly, like boiling water, rolling and surging, and the steaming spiritual energy stretched the meridians even wider. Drops of cold sweat fell from his forehead. Suchen gritted his teeth, but still restrained the spiritual power in his body from attacking the 9th meridian. He knew that as his cultivation level increased, the meridians in his body became tougher and stronger. If you want to break through the 9th meridian, it seems that the boiling spiritual power can make a normal monk explode to death. In fact, it is still very difficult to break through the 9th meridian. He didn't want to miss the opportunity to attack the 9th level of Qi martial arts because of the unbearable pain in his meridians. On the road to martial arts, if you don't advance, you will retreat. How could he go further without the will to succeed or not and to move forward indomitably? If you don't pay, who will reward you? Take another Qi enhancing pill. Suchen roared, like a rampaging beast. The third Qi intake pill had entered the body, like a bomb with the fuse ignited. The spiritual power exploded in the body. Boom! The spiritual power was lost in an instant. He lost control and rushed randomly inside the body. Suchen's body skin was inflating airbags at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was really terrifying. At this time, his mind was filled with golden bells ringing and crashing, and there was still a trace of sanity left. The will reluctantly guided the out-of-control spiritual power, and rushed towards the 9th meridian. Bang! A thick stone door that seemed to be made of solid rock was blasted, and the rampant spiritual power seemed to find the flood outlet in an instant and poured in violently. The 9th level of Qi martial arts is done. Poof! A large mouthful of blood spurted out, and blood mist rose up when it splashed on the ground. Suchen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with a look of great joy on his face. He finally reached the 9th level of Qi martial arts. The mouthful of blood just now was just the overflow of the boiling spiritual power in the body when it hit the 9th meridian. Now that it was spit out, the body felt extremely relaxed and happy. However, the 9th meridian was opened, the originally full spiritual power in his body was much empty. Suchen continued to sit cross-legged, holding a low-grade spiritual stone in each hand, quietly concentrating on stabilizing the cultivation he had just achieved. The next day, the place for the decisive battle agreed with Jin Shenyang, a martial arts field in the Vajra sect where outer disciples often competed, was crowded with people. At a glance, there might be thousands of people there. Almost all the outer disciples of the Vajra sect are here, and there are even many inner disciples who have free time to stand at the outermost periphery with arms folded and chatting. When Zhao Kong and others rushed here with Lu Sheng, they were stunned by this scene. Is the boss's reputation already so strong? The duel with Jin Shenyang actually attracted so many people's attention. Zhao Kang's mouth was wide open, and he could almost stuff a pear into it. After all, Lu Sheng was the oldest and had a mature and steady personality. He carefully looked at the situation around him and frowned. The duel between my benefactor and Jin Shenyang was in front of the outer disciples. It's not surprising that the competition between Ten's existence attracted the attention of the outer disciples. Look over there, 4 or 5 are all inner disciples, even one of the best among the inner disciples, Lian Shengguan, is here. This is incredible. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be the case. Zhao Kong said impatiently. Brother Lu, don't analyze it anymore, just ask someone and you will know. He grabbed an ordinary disciple and asked, Brother, why are there so many people here today, what happened? The ordinary disciple glanced at Zhao Kong in surprise, and said with a hint of contempt, what's the matter? Duel between the top 10 outer disciples. You don't even know this? Which cave did you just come out of seclusion? Zhao Kong didn't mind the other party's attitude and said shamelessly, it's impossible for the top 10 to attract all the inner disciples to a duel. At first glance, this brother has a higher level of cultivation than my brother and I. He must be a person with extraordinary talents and his eyesight should not be bad. I am a mediocre person. Please tell me. Zhao Kong is indeed the most flattering person among the Fuheling disciples. As soon as the call ended, the ordinary disciple immediately explained proudly. Well, let me tell you. Well, have you seen the person sitting in the field? Zhao Kong looked in the direction of his finger and said, Jin Shenyang, I know him, the protagonist of today's duel. Hi. It's not him, he is not the protagonist of today, and senior brother Ye, who has not yet arrived, is not the protagonist of today either. Today's real protagonist is the one next to Jin Shenyang, the female disciple of Chongjian Pavilion, Wu Menying. Heavy Sword Pavilion. Zhao Kang's reaction made the ordinary disciple very satisfied, and he continued to explain. That Miss Wu is Jin Shenjiang's cousin, and she is also an elite disciple of the outer sect of the Chongjian Pavilion, the largest sect in our county. She happened to come to our Vajra sect today for something to do. When she saw that her cousin was about to duel with someone, she came too. Have a look.